Welcome to Ponytails and Pep Talks, the podcast where blowouts, breakdowns, and breakthroughs are a weekly discussion. I'm your host, ReJeania. For over 3 decades, I've been behind the salon chair as a stylist, an owner, and yes, your favorite unlicensed therapist. I have heard it all. The tears, the triumphs, the you won't believe what just happened stories from courageous women overcoming incredible obstacles. So let's meet one of them right now on Ponytails and Pep Talks. Hi guys, before we begin today, I do need to share a content warning with you. Today's episode contains discussions of domestic violence, drug use, and gun violence. Though ultimately the story reflects strength and survival and hope, some parts may be very difficult to hear, and you may not want young children in the room. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Ponytails and Pep Talks. I'm your host, ReJeania, and I'm so excited that you're here to be with me today. Today, our story is about survival, healing, and hope. My guest today is an incredible survivor. Her story made news headlines in a little town in Texas in 2011. Her husband began a road of drug abuse, and one day while at her parents' home, he showed up with a gun pointed to anyone in his way. He murdered her mom, her dad, and shot her several times and tried to end her life. Then he turned the gun on himself. With incredible courage and strength, she got up, running for help to the nearest neighbor a few fields over because it was such a rural town. She was bleeding, hurting, afraid, and dying. All the while, she was forced to leave her 15-month-old daughter behind, still in the arms of her now dead mother. Welcome, my guest, ReShay Rodgers. I am incredibly blessed that you have joined me today. I know that large syndicates have tried to tell your story and you've turned them down and you weren't ready. And now you are getting ready to tell your story. And I'm so excited that Ponytails and Pep Talks will get to be the one to put that story out to everyone. Tell everyone a little bit about you and what you're excited about these days.
I'm excited just about life and new starts always. No matter what has been put in my path, I continue to persevere, and there's no stopping a strong woman.
I absolutely believe that. Absolutely. Especially the more things that we go through, in life that causes us to have strength that we didn't even know existed. So, how old are you now?
I just turned 40.
Yes, and you're absolutely stunningly beautiful.
Thank
I have
you.
to say that.
Well, likewise, ma'am.
Thank you. So, how old were you when this incident happened?
I was 25.
25. So you weren't a spring chicken, but you were still, super young. When you're ready, go back and tell me about that day. You got up that morning. What happened?
It was a regular morning in our country home in South Texas, and we had a tradition in my parents' home where before everybody started their day, we would have coffee together, and then we'd start, our tasks and go to work, etc. And so we had all just sat our coffee cups down, and I looked out the window, and we had an electric gate, and that's when I saw him there, parked in front of the gate.
So at this point, how long had y'all had been married?
He and I were together for about 3 years, and we had had an estranged relationship, fixing to get our divorce finalized any week before this had occurred.
So I'm guessing the drug use had started before this day.
Yes.
Obviously.
Yes.
So what kind of led him into that path, and what was going on with him?
He was extremely abusive verbally and physically during our relationship. All the signs were there for all the years. I grew up in a very, very good home. My parents were married for almost 30 years, so I'd never been exposed to this sort of behavior. But our daughter was born with a very rare muscle and joint disorder, and that sort of sent him over the edge. And once I finally had the courage to leave him, that's when the drug relapse had happened.
Okay, so that particular day, was there anything that just really set him off that day that caused him, to come to the house?
I could tell by his phone call early that morning that he had been using, and he asked to come pick our daughter up. That was obviously very young at the time, 15 months. And I just said, no, I don't think that's a good idea. So, other than that, there wasn't anything in particular. It was just very common behavior. A narcissist and an abuser they don't like the answer no.
They do not.
So that was pretty much the way the cards played out. It happened very fast.
So whenever he got inside the gate, did you have any idea that he had a gun on him at that time?
No.
Did y'all let him in the house though? Or did he just let himself in the house?
He jumped the electric gate, and at that point, I said something to my father in context like, "Daddy, it's time to get the gun." And he said, "Well, let me go talk to him on the back porch first." So I advised my mother to, take my daughter and lock her in the master bedroom, and just kind of see what was going to happen next.
Yeah, and of course, for people who don't know, and most people know, in Texas, it's very common for us to have guns. Especially when you live on a ranch and in a field, and you're taking care of animals and wild animals, are around. So, not unusual at all. So, whenever he came into the house, where did he go first, and when did he pull his gun out?
He met my father on our back porch. It was sort of a outdoor living area. My parents had a beautiful place, and my father confronted him. And when he did, all I remember was standing in the kitchen and hearing gunfire. It was 5. And I didn't know who it came from or what had happened. Of course, this was opening dove season. This was in September of 2011. That's when dove season opened. So to hear gunfire was not uncommon for anybody. Of course, like you said, in Texas, it's pretty normal.
It is.
So that's how it transpired. And then the next move was he kicked in the back door, and then he proceeded to open fire on me.
Okay, so you were second.
Yes, ma'am.
So whenever he started shooting you, well, tell me all the places that you got shot to begin with.
The first place I was shot was through my right leg with a 45 at very close range. And then the next 2 shots went through my chest. And at that point, I was laying on the living room floor, and I just happened to turn my head on the floor. And when I did, the last fatal shot went through my neck, face, and jaw.
I can't imagine what you were feeling at that moment. What was going through your mind? Was he yelling or saying anything?
Nothing.
Was he calm? Was he angry?
His eyes were just as black as could be. That's all I can remember seeing, was just a very disturbed individual. So once I took that last fatal shot, every good memory of my life came just flashing through. And I opened my eyes, and I just remember God telling me one thing, and he said, "Run." So I got up off the floor, and I ran as fast as I could. We had one neighbor. This is a very, very secluded area. You can't see the house from the road. And so I ran to the one neighbor's house that was out there.
To get to. So at this point, you had no idea yet then that your mom was shot?
No.
Or that he had turned around and shot himself?
Correct. Once I made it to the farm to market road, I let myself into the neighbor's house, and I remember hearing more gunshots as I was running. And at that point, I somehow kind of put two and two together that nobody was going to survive.
Mm-hmm.
So as I was exiting the house and the ranch, he was shooting at me through the house. But I had ran so fast that I was able to make it.
So were you able to speak or anything? I mean, you're probably bleeding profusely, at this point, and I'm sure getting weaker. And did the neighbors see you pretty quickly? Were they in the house?
Yes, they were actually, they were a retired couple, and they were getting ready to load their truck up and go out of town. So it wasn't uncommon for me then to work out and walk and run up and down those farm to market roads and county roads. So they just assumed that maybe I was hit by a car. So I grabbed a piece of mail that was on their counter and wrote down, "I've been shot. They're all dead."
Wow. What was their reaction?
A lot of shock.
Yeah.
Once they realized the velocity of the situation, I grabbed, I think she had some towels that were sitting on the counter, and I tied off my leg and elevated myself up. Somehow, I'm not a paramedic or anything like that, but it was just instinct because I knew I was going to die.
Right. So the first of all, just the amount of strength, the courage, the adrenaline, and everything going. You mentioned that you felt like God told you, get up and run. So how has your faith played into everything that happened that day and to this day?
In every way possible.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for my faith, I could have turned to some really terrible things in my life. Like I said earlier, my parents were wonderful people. I tell people this all the time, I come from a long line of love.
Yeah.
Wonderful family, and if it weren't for all of that has been instilled in me throughout my young life, because this happened when I was only 25, and the support that I had thereafter, I could have done a whole different path in my life.
Right. So what happened now? Did the neighbors call the police? Did you try to go back to the house right away? What went on there?
The neighbors called 911, and we lived so far out, and so it seemed like it took an eternity. And I remember the ambulance passing back and forth and having to turn around, going, where are we going? Where's the house? Because it was so, unless you knew the area very well, it was always hard to find. So that's the way things played out. So
did the ambulance then take you on to the hospital? You never went back to the house yet?
No, I knew to not go back because I obviously didn't know what was happening.
Right.
And it was make a choice, either fight for your life, because going back would mean that I would not be here talking to you.
Right.
So the neighbor calls 911. They finally make it, and once they get me into the ambulance, they realize that I'm fading very fast. So they were able to call in flight coordinates and fly me to Corpus Christi, Texas on a Halo flight.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure your adrenaline at that point had finally, you'd gotten help. So your body also knew to relax kind of at that point. What were you thinking about your daughter though? Were you concerned that he would have, shot her also? Or
I didn't think that he would harm her, but I knew that he would harm my mother and himself because he had threatened that very many times in the past. And so I knew that it was going to be multiple fatalities. Right. I just knew it in my heart. But something just told me, hold on, because you have to live for her. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Hi, everyone. So that includes part one of our story today. ReShay is here with me today, and I'm sorry about all the problems with the visuals, but I hope you guys were intrigued by the story and ready to hear the other half. Next week, we'll finish discussing after she gets home from the hospital what else is going on in her life at that point. She will now be facing the funerals and more surgeries for her and more surgeries for her daughter. So join us next week with Ponytails and Pep Talks, and we'll keep you updated on our story. Bye bye.